get it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your guys' host, SchuZ Schumaker. I hope you guys are having a very blessed Thursday so far. With that being said, though, on today's show, there's not going to be a guest, nor will there be a guest on tomorrow's show. But what there will be is a lot of boxing topics to get into on today's show. On top of that, if you guys want to add to the topics or have any discussion points, maybe even some disagreements with myself, make sure to leave it in the chat and I will address it. Your comment should pop up on the screen. And at that point in time, I will then address what you guys have to say. But let's get right into it today. Yesterday's show was right after the wild news of the Tank Davis versus Jake Paul fight getting announced on Netflix and gave my thoughts on that. I've now had, obviously, over 24 hours to digest this information, recognize what's happening, and now we can move forward and proceed with that. And I want to start with one aspect. I feel like there's one thing that looms larger than anything else at this point in time, and that is what is next for Lamont Roach. All right, so let's rewind about 1 year ago, because that's when the negotiations and the rumors for Lamont Roach versus Tank Davis first began. At that point in time, Lamont Roach was a man at 130, a world champion. Those of us that knew boxing knew Lamont Roach was very talented. We knew Lamont Roach was great. He was a world champion. However, on paper, it did not look like a good fight when Tank Davis wanted to go fight him. Why? Well, for obvious reasons. Tank Davis had the big fights to make with Shakur Stevenson. Tank Davis had other big fights he could have made at 135, but instead he wanted to pull the man from 130, so on and so forth. We know the story. Well, then the fight ends up actually coming to fruition. Lamont Roach, Tank Davis square off and fight each other. At this point in time, most people still do not know who Lamont Roach is, but then on that night, Lamont Roach goes out there and puts on a masterclass. And he proved everybody wrong. He gained a massive fan base in a fight in which he should have won. Obviously, it's controversial. It was a draw. But I think everybody that rewatched that fight, not even including what should have been ruled a knockdown from Tank Davis, knows that fight should have gone in the direction of Lamont Roach. So here we are in today's position. Lamont Roach, since that point in time, has waited and waited and waited, all in hopes of getting a big payday in that rematch against Gervonta Tank Davis. And by all means, if boxing was done properly, if Tank Davis was a man with a competitive nature, then we would have seen a rematch come to fruition between Lamont Roach and Tank Davis. But here's the situation at hand. Tank Davis had some legal problems. Lamont Roach waited patiently. Now Tank Davis gets those legal problems situated and cleared up, and he decides to go out there and make a big fight. Not the rematch with Lamont Roach, not even a fight with Manny Pacquiao, but instead he's going to be fighting an exhibition fight in his physical prime against Jake Paul. I give him my thoughts on that. You guys know I'm very much so against that fight being made, but that's why I have to propose this question to you guys. What is next for Lamont Roach now? Because Lamont Roach is riding quite high overall. Has he allowed some of the hype to die down a little bit? Maybe, I don't know, but Lamont Roach is now in a position where most people know who he is. He's no longer just a casual or no longer just a diehard boxing fan name that people know. Lamont Roach has now asserted himself amongst the names that even casual boxing fans are well aware of. So the answer is this. Lamont Roach will get a massive payday regardless of who he fights next. And I went on my show a month ago and I talked about this. I said, listen, if you are Lamont Roach, it's time to start figuring out what's next for yourself. Stop waiting on Gervonta Tank Davis. When it comes to making fights that need to get made, Tank Davis is not really the guy you're going to rely upon to make sure that fight happens. We've learned that. Shakur Stevenson has learned that, as has many other great fighters. So if you were Lamont Roach, you have the hype, you have the name, and you have a much larger brand now where no matter where you fight, it's going to be for significantly larger amounts of money than it would have been prior to the Tank Davis fight. And that's a fact. So what does Lamont Roach do from here? Well, there's quite a few options on the table. If we're going to be honest, let me just make this very clear. He could stay at 130 and defend his belt. Jonathan Dickens is now the interim world champion, so he would have to fight Jonathan Dickens if he wants to go and retain that belt at 130 pounds. However, let's be honest right now. There's not a lot of money to be made at 130 pounds. Yes, there's fights you could make. Of course, the winner, O'Shaquie Foster, Stephen Coolboy Fulton, great fight. Would I like to see that? Absolutely. But is there a ton of money in that fight? I'm not so sure. Here's where the money's at right now, especially in American boxing. 135. When you are at 135, there are countless names. Listen, of course we know the big name would be, of course, Gervonta Tank Davis. Knock that name out. That's not happening for right now, at least. Move on to Shakur Stevenson. I will address that quite shortly. But Shakur Stevenson, big name. Raymond Murtai, even. He has a much larger name than a lot of guys at 130 do. There's an option. How about this? This isn't for a world championship, but Kid Austin. a rising prospect, a very exciting fighter to go out there and watch, that would be a fight where you can make a lot of money. And I feel like at the bare minimum, this is even what Lamont Roach said on his stream last night. He thinks that he's going to be able to pull in about $1 million at least for his next fight. And when I look at those names I just listed right there, all of those should be able to go into fruition and give him at least $1 million. Is any of these going to equate to the amount of money he would have made against Gervonta Tank Davis in a rematch? No, absolutely not. But here's what I do know. If you are Lamont Roach, you have to have all the confidence in the world right now. Prior to you stepping from that ring with Gervonta Tank Davis, a lot of people out there believe that Tank Davis was the best man at 135. I've always viewed Schumaker Stevenson above him, but the point is, Tank Davis was still one of the top guys at 135. And you went out there and you beat him. You did. With or without the knockdown that should have been called, you beat Gervonta Tank Davis. So your confidence should be sky high against all of them. Now, stylistically, I don't think he beat Schumaker Stevenson. Lamont Roach is an excellent fighter, very high Q fighter. He knows his ring awareness. He's a very disciplined fighter. And guess what? So is Schumaker Stevenson. When styles make fights, it's a very tough fight to get into. I feel like he will lose out in that fight, but that still would be a very fun fight to watch for true, pure boxing fans. But if you look at this list, and he talked about this, he actually even said this, I'm going to actually add the quote. He said the rumored fight between Lamont Roach and Schumaker Stevenson is not going to happen this calendar year. He says that Schumaker Stevenson will be out for this calendar year of 2025. I have to assume it's either for rest or the hand injuries. We know Schumaker does not have the most durable wrist or hand. We don't know exactly what happened there, but supposedly Schumaker is out for the year. If that is the case, Schumaker Stevenson said this. Lamont was getting ready for the rematch, so he has gone. So what is this? Let me reread this. My bad. Lamont Roach was getting ready for the rematch, so he has to go between a fight and then fight me on top of that one. But it's only if T.O. accepts the fight, though. So for Schumaker Stevenson, it appears that he's got option number one for himself is the Teofimo Lopez fight. I get it. It makes sense. A lot of money should be in that fight. A big opportunity move to 140, become another weight world champion. Makes sense for Schumaker Stevenson. But if I am Lamont Roach and Schumaker Stevenson, specifically for Lamont Roach, and that's what this segment is about, here's what I'm doing. If I'm Lamont Roach, I would go out there and just fight a tune-up fight. At the end of the day, it's now been, by the time you get back in the ring, let's put it about 6 to 8 months. You will be able to get back in the ring, go fight another guy at 135. You should be able to go beat that guy with ease, build your name up even more, get a nice little payday in, let's call it October, November time. If that fight goes according to plan, Schumaker Stevenson should be available, and you make a fight with Schumaker Stevenson for a world championship. Let's call it springtime of next year. I could see the fight happening March or April. If you're Lamont Roach, that would make perfect sense for yourself. And if not, go after Raymond Martaya. I feel like that's a fight you could go out there and win. I think you could beat Raymond Martaya, become world champion, maybe even have a unification with Schumaker Stevenson. There's a lot of things on the table. And that's why if I'm looking at a situation from Lamont Roach, obviously, it's a little bit of a hit to the gut, you know? You're not going to get the big payday. You don't get your get back on Tank Davis. But sometimes you have to move forward. And this is one of those situations. He's going to be okay. If you're Lamont Roach, you have so many options available right now at 135. Just flip the mindset, go look what's out there, and you're going to be okay. And honestly, I'm ecstatic for this because Lamont Roach is somebody that I think won a ton of fans, and I cannot wait to see him back in the ring when he gets going after it again. But as I said, to pivot over to Schumaker Stevenson real quickly, I talked about this last week when the rumors came out. I think that fight should get done. Teofimo Lopez put himself in quite the bundle with his mouth. A lot of guys in big opportunity fights fizzled out for one reason or another. We've already discussed that beforehand. And if you're at this point in time and Schumaker is one of the only big names that want to fight you, I think that fight comes to fruition. I think Teofimo Lopez almost is going to be forced to take that fight. And if that fight happens, I know a lot of fans out there are not going to like the fight, and I get it. It will not be the most entertaining fight ever. From a boxing purist standpoint, I think it's an entertaining fight, and I'm not against that whatsoever. Appreciate you, Ryan, for tuning in. Much salute to you as well, man. Appreciate you for the like as well, man. All right, so let's pop over to Tank Davis talking about this, all right? I gave my thoughts on the fight. I'm not going to discuss the Jake Paul, Tank Davis situation anymore. Until the fight rolls around, I'll bring it up at that point in time. What I want to really evaluate, though, is Tank Davis' career right now. And here's the truth. I feel like why so many people are currently hurt by this Tank Davis situation is because we see greatness in him. I'm not going to sit up here and hate on the man. I see why he did these fights. He's getting a massive bag. It is what it is. He's putting money over his career, over his resume, all those different things. I get it. All right, that's the way he chose. But from somebody that sees his potential, there's no reason this man is not going to go down as one of the most accomplished fighters from this era in boxing. No reason. His God-given ability is right up there among some of the top guys. He has exceptional power for his size. He is a very skilled fighter as well. As I've always said, the only guy that in any weight class nearing around Tank Davis that could give him a legitimate fight is Shakur Stevenson, and that's a 50-50 fight. Outside of Shakur Stevenson, because styles make fights, Tank Davis could have accomplished phenomenal things. He could have beat out anybody at 130, 135, call it even 140. You could even get a little bit risky if you so wanted to be daring and be like a Manny Pacquiao and maybe even test his weight with 147 in the future. That's a very far off hypothetical. I'm just saying, this is the type of skill this man has. He could have accomplished incredible things, been a without a shadow of a doubt Hall of Fame first ballot man. That's what this man could have accomplished. And when I look at his resume right now, it's far from that. This is a resume, let's just be honest. Does it even make the Hall of Fame? That's a quite questionable statement to make. At large, has he been very significant for boxing and what he has brought from a revenue standpoint, brought eyes to the sport, great entertaining fights, entertaining nights, so on and so forth? Yes, he has been an icon for American boxing in this era from that standpoint. But you have to have both the iconic standpoint from what you do branding-wise line up with what you've done inside of that ring if you want to be an all-time great. There's a lot of guys that can talk a big talk. There's a lot of guys that can put eyes on the sport. There's a lot of guys that can do those things. But can you also be successful inside of that ring and accomplish big things, win big accolades, have a great resume? That's the question for a lot of us to ask. And when you talk about Gervonta Tank Davis, let's just be honest. He has not accomplished that full-on thing to fruition yet. And that's what's unfortunate. But let's look back on some comments he has said over the duration of his career. These are just straight from his mouth. Gervonta Tank Davis has said these following quotes. "It's crap. It's garbage. I'm fed up with all of this crap," in referring to boxing. "I just want to make money and stay under the radar. I want to live without being seen. After next year, I am out." At the end of the day, we have to respect this. Tank Davis has been somebody that's been very upfront with people. Whether you like it or not, Tank Davis has been very, very upfront with fans and the world about what his true priorities are when he comes into boxing. He cares about money. He does not want the high profile. He does not want all this massive fame. He wants to live a quiet, under-the-radar life. He does not care about their resume. And Tank Davis wants to go forth and actually just make money. Whether you like that or not, he at least is being upfront about that. He's been very clear from the beginning that he does not want to go out there and make money. Do I like that? Absolutely not. As a boxing fan, is it a disgrace to the sport overall? Absolutely. Does it make sense? Does it hurt the sport at large? Yes, it does. However, I just have to look at the facts. This man has told us what he wants to do all along. So for us to sit up here now and act like we're surprised that he's taking a fight with Jake Paul is a little bit foolish of us. We've known that these are the type of things that he would be pursuing. There were already rumors of the Jake Paul fight right after the Lamont Roach rematch. This is not new information. This is not new things coming to our mind right now. What we're witnessing is Tank Davis doing exactly what he told us he was going to do. And I have to respect that aspect. At least he's being upfront about the situation. But this is a problem. Because at the end of the day, this upholds and is a reflection of the problem with American boxing right now. I'm a big boxing fan. I love the sport. But I'd be foolish to sit up here and say that American boxing is thriving right now. It's not. In fact, let me go even a step further. American boxing over the past decade or so, this era of boxing, has been falling off the cliff on a massive, massive, rapid pace. And it's unfortunate to see that. This is a sport that has thrived in America. It's been one of the biggest sports in America since the 70s, 80s, so on and so forth. This has been one of the biggest sports. And now I can sit up here confidently and say that obviously this is a football country, first and foremost. Basketball is second up. You have baseball in the mix. Hockey's in the mix. You could even make a debate with the way that UFC is growing right now, that the UFC is bigger than boxing within the boundaries of America right now. In the world stage, absolutely not. But within the boundaries of America, it is up there. And in large part, it's because American boxing has struggled to find those true superstars. When we talk about all the different divisions in boxing, let's start with heavyweight. We've had one man carrying us this entire time, Deontay Wilder. And when he went to this big stage to go fight these top guys, it didn't go so well. On top of that, Deontay Wilder is now aging out. So what is there in store for American heavyweight division? Not good. As for the other weight classes, post Floyd Mayweather, there's not been a lot of big fights to be made right there in the weight classes with Americans. And Floyd Mayweather in and of itself was somebody that people didn't necessarily like either. There has been a massive problem, and now Tank Davis rolled around. He was supposed to be this golden child. Tank Davis came in with this massive name, this massive branding, phenomenal God-given abilities. And yet, he didn't go out there and accomplish what he could have accomplished. He could go down as a first ballot Hall of Famer, an all-time great type of guy, but he's not. And that hurts the sport. So many guys are pursuing other sports right now as opposed to boxing. And the sport of boxing is in a bad place in America. Its popularity is quickly dwindling. Yes, there's big fights. And when massive fights happen, look what happens. Look at Mike Tyson, Jake Paul last year. Look at what happens when we just had Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano fight on Netflix. Look what's going to happen when Canelo and Bud Crawford fight, and even when Tank Davis and Jake Paul fight. There is a big audience. When you promote it properly, when fights do somewhat happen, eyes do come to the sport. There is an appeal to boxing still in America. The problem is that we're not giving the proper product to the fan base to help grow it. Now, there's a lot of other issues with boxing as well, but that's a big one. And so Tank Davis doing this move only goes to reflect how poorly the sport is going in the direction it's at right now. And it's unfortunate to see that. Other interesting news is this. The WBA will review the status of Gervonta Tank Davis as its lightweight champion after it was announced that Davis would fight Jake Paul in November. Davis could possibly be stripped after failing to comply with an order to face Lamont Roach Jr. Here's the deal on this one. As somebody that is disappointed in the fight that happened and is getting made, do I mind him getting stripped since we have a new champion? Not the most, but let's be honest. Why would he get stripped? He didn't necessarily break a law. Now, if the WBA comes out and says this, that the Lamont Roach Jr. and Tank Davis had a deadline, the deadline has passed, Tank Davis did not negotiate with Lamont Roach, and he did not pay Lamont Roach a step-aside amount, then that would be a problem. But as far as we know, there was never a set deadline, so he did not break a deadline, and therefore, he's just going out there making another fight happen. He's not necessarily breaking any laws and rules, and because of that, I cannot say that he should move on and have his belt relinquished or stripped from him. As unfortunate as it is, he's going to keep his belt as he should. That's just a fact in the way I view it, to be honest with you guys. Let's get over to a few other things before I let you guys go. One of which is this. JARON boots ENNIS. And UISMA LIMA card has now been released. All right, so this is interesting now. So this card is going to be good. I've talked about this before. Boots, Ennis, and Lima is an underrated fight that's going to get made. I know some people are against it for what Boots is doing. Lima's a good fighter. If you have not watched him, please go watch him. Very entertaining. Do I think Boots will win the fight? Yes. But don't get it twisted. Lima's not just some easy run-him-down opponent. But here's the undercard. Khalil Coe, Jesse Hart. That's a banger right there. Love that fight. Remember, Khalil Coe's coming off the massive rematch performance he had a few months ago. Jesse Hart's a very good veteran. I love that fight. Then Vanilo and Alexis Barreri, a good heavyweight fight right there. Remember, Vanilo's coming off of a win or loss against Richard Torres Jr., but he really did push Richard Torres Jr. in that fight. Tahir Smalls is going up against the man that upset Gilla Hackett last year. And then you have other guys on the card, Zaquin Moses, Giorgio Visioli, Harley Mendoza, and Dennis Thompson. So this is going to be a very good card. Looking forward to this one. I like how they put that together. Good matchroom card right there. Here's another interesting news that came out today. I talked about this last week. I was very excited for the fight. Jarrell Miller, Michael Hunter going to be fighting. We didn't know the location at the time. It now comes out that it's going to be at the Fountain Blue. However, this fight is now supposedly going to be canceled. Unfortunately, remember, Turki Al-Sheikh came out and made it clear he does not want Canelo Bud Crawford to be a one-day event. It was going to be a 2 or 3 day event. And when that got announced, this was one of the first fights on that card. Now, here's what Jarrell Miller came out and said. Hunter's officially out. Fight's off. Another word I'm not going to say because I'll keep the show clean. Can't make this something up. That's Jarrell Miller's response. Then Michael Hunter said this. It has zero to do with Don King. Miller pulled out. So we're going back and forth here. Then Michael Hunter also has said that he's been told the fight that was planned for September 11th at the Fountain Blue is off. This all comes after Don King issued a cease and desist order to Sela and TKO, claiming he had legally binding contract with Hunter. So Don King's going after it again. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit more details. Boxing Scene came out with this report, and I'm just going to read it straight up from them. This is from Boxing Scene, 100% from their article. Give them props for that one. This is what they said. Among those issues Boxing Scene learned Thursday was the absence of a formal request to the Nevada Athletic Commission to stage the bout. While that could get handled expeditiously, along with Hunter's licensing to fight in the state, the commission has not received drug test results from Miller, who has been previously suspended for positive tests, a regulator said. Nevada requires clean drug tests for such fighters 30, 15, and 3 days before the bouts. The scheduled fight date is 21 days away. This would be consistent with Bash's reference to regulatory issues. All right, so here's the situation at hand. we had a very intriguing heavyweight fight between two top American heavyweight contenders right now, two top contenders in all the heavyweight division, period, and between Michael Hunter and Jarrell Miller. This was a fight I was very excited for. Remember, Jarrell Miller, Big Baby, and Miller were supposed to fight each other first. Michael Hunter steps up. I think it was going to be a better fight this way around anyways. And now Don King was getting his little nosy self into it, not wanting the fight to happen. But now push comes to shove, and we don't know what's going on. There's two sides to the story. Both sides are throwing the rock at the other man. Neither side seems to know exactly what to do next. And so now we're in a position where, guess what? Regardless of which side you want to believe, whether this is on the part of Jarrell Miller, who, let's just make it honest, he has failed drug tests before and lost fights. He has pulled out of fights multiple times before. This is a man that's not very consistent with fights. So you can take that with what you want to take it with. This is a different situation. Historically based, Jarrell Miller does have a history with this. Just going to point that out there. Whether you take Jarrell Miller's side or you take Michael Hunter's side, here's the bad news for boxing fans. The fight's off. It's off. What was going to be a beautiful fight that was getting scheduled for September 11th in preparation for Canelo Bud Crawford, it is now not going to happen, bearing last-minute changes where something somehow happens to make this fight happen. So very unfortunate because this was going to be a great fight. Last thing on the show today. Now, one more thing. If you guys are tuning in and you guys have any comments or questions or things to discuss on today's show, make sure to leave it in the chat. I will discuss them. I'll point them out. Once again, appreciate you for tuning in, Ryan. I appreciate you always for tuning in and the support you got, my man. With that being said, though, if you guys have any other comments, make sure to show up and put it in the chat, and I will address that once again. All right, so let's get right to the final thing. TELLEZ wants Boots Ennis fight next. Giannis TELLEZ, the Drawn Boots Ennis fight, can happen anytime. I'm going to be crowned WBA champion soon, and Ennis moved up in weight. That fight can happen. It will be a great fight. I want it. Remember, for Giannis TELLEZ, this is a man that is interim champion right now. Bud Crawford, most likely, not guaranteed, but everyone likely believes it, is never going to fight at 154 again. He'll be either retiring, staying at 168. Who knows what's going to happen? But Bud Crawford will relinquish that belt, meaning that TELLEZ will be promoted to the full champion. He's the world champion. If Boots Ennis comes out against Lima and wins that fight as expected, TELLEZ is saying this: I want the fight. I want it. He says legitimately, I want the fight with Boots Ennis. Now, this would be huge because if Boots Ennis beats Lima, this will be for the mandatory, meaning that it would essentially be set in place. Boots Ennis, TELLEZ, world champion, and this could possibly make, as long as Terrence Bud Crawford does not return back to 154, this would mean that Boots Ennis has a legitimate chance at becoming a two-division world champion, which would be huge for his career. And ultimately, let's just say this: if he beats TELLEZ, which I would probably favor him once again in that fight, this sets up, as long as Virgil Ortiz takes care of business against Erickson Lubin, and then possibly goes challenges Sebastian Fundora for a world championship, that we could legitimately have a shot at having the fight I've always talked about. Virgil Ortiz, Drawn Boots Ennis for a unification world championship fight at 154. That's been the dream scenario. I pointed that out so many times to you guys. That's the fight I think needs to happen. But I think both guys should become unified, should become world champions at first, so then they can unify them. And the path is now being set in place. We'll see if they follow it to fruition. But that's the plan that I see for both guys. It makes the most sense in my eyes, and I hope that's what ends up unfolding. So yes, the potential outline plan for Boots Ennis goes like this: he fights Lima upcoming in a couple of months. He fights TELLEZ early next year for the world championship. If all goes according to plan, we could see Boots Ennis fight Virgil Ortiz in the summertime of next year for a unified world championship, or at least a big fight for a world championship if Virgil Ortiz cannot go get his world title shot before then. So that's what we got in store for 154 right now. It's a popping division. The depth is insane in that weight class. I think it's the best weight class in all boxing, and big moves are being made as we speak. With that being said, I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today's show. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of you guys Thursday. I will be back live tomorrow. I'm expecting to be live at a roughly 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. No guest tomorrow. I'll be heading out of town, so I got to get the show done early and all those good things. So I'll be giving you guys a fight preview of the fights going down this weekend. Also getting into some boxing news as well. So I'll see you guys back live tomorrow. Cannot wait for that episode. I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a blessed rest of you guys Thursday. May God bless you guys all, and I'll see you guys back live tomorrow. SchuZ is out, and God bless you guys.